Hi, welcome to Conversations with Yve Anmore, where we have fun, enlightening, informative conversations on topics as far-ranging as uh, what is the connection between consciousness and quantum physics, to do we need reparations for slavery, and everything in between. And today, that everything in between involves this human being that you can see on screen here, who is an amazing being, let me tell you. We met on an intensive course that stretched us to our limits and gave us a lot of wonderful lessons. So I'm just going to check his bio here and read a little bit of it for you, introduce you to Trayvon Trey Smith. And Trey is a San Franciscan native who has an intense passion for fashion, art ventures, photography, and building community. He's a strong believer in using his talents to give back to the community and believes that everyone deserves to have their stories told and their voices heard. He's an advocate for Black and queer visibility. He uses his business, Realist Exposure, to platform the voices of those who are often marginalized. Trey is dedicated to curating, creating, and contributing to safe spaces where BIPOC and queer people can be their authentic selves. And he works tirelessly to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table. And just so you'll find out throughout the conversation between Trey and I, but he's a fashion and visual artist. He's a founder of Realist Exposure. He's also an event photographer and a creative consultant. And you could also come to him for brand management. Trey is a true creative. So welcome to Conversations with Yve Anmore, Trey.
Hi, Eve. Thank you so much
Yay!
for having me. That was such a nice intro. I had to sit there and just bask in it. Thank you so much.
bask away, my love. He
Mhm.
deserves that and so much more. So, my first question for you is, can you tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up? Have you got brothers, sisters? Where are you in the family? What was your early life like?
I grew up in in the 90s, early 2000s, of course. I have two younger sisters. I'm the oldest of three. I grew up with my mom, my grandma, and a lot of my family members who, kind of have become estranged.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's a little bit about who I've grown up with. If anybody knows anything about San Francisco, California, if you will know something about the Sunnydale projects. I grew up in the projects when I was very young, so that was an obstacle to that I had to overcome, excuse me. And yeah, a lot of gun violence, sexual assault, you name it, had to
Wow.
overcome it all. Mm.
You never think of San Francisco as having that aspect every time you see it, especially if we're not from America and we view it. Uh, we don't really have that highlighted. So, what is it like? Is it actually quite a diverse community? I know it is in terms of sexuality, but is it a diverse community in terms of race?
Is it a diverse community in terms of race? Yes. Is there a whole lot of Black people here? A whole lot of excuse me. Is there a whole lot of Black people here? I'm gonna have to say no. It's less
Mm.
it's less than 3% of Black people who stay in San Francisco, and a lot of the natives has been priced out.
Oh,
Yeah, so they're living in other places. So I'm one of the last ones standing from gentrification.
uh-huh. So there's a real impact over there with gentrification. And so is it what we would call ghettoized in that sense that people are put in their own separate communities?
I, in a way, yes, it was a lot worse when I was growing up. It was more ghettoized when I was growing up. Like a lot of people stuck to their neighborhoods. Like I was like people who lived in the Sunnydale projects would stay in the Sunnydale area. Like people who stayed in Baby Hunters Point out here would stay in the Baby Hunters Point.
Mm.
Growing up, that's very much how it was. Like I didn't get on my first airplane ride until like 2017.
Wow,
Like
yeah.
I didn't explore what downtown or any other places in San Francisco was until I would say I was in like eighth grade,
Mm.
2011 probably. So
That's a
yeah,
common experience for a lot of people of color, to be honest. I think it
yeah.
was very similar for me. And how was it? Do you identify as queer or gay, or how do you identify?
I identify as queer and I am bisexual. I'm in a relationship with
Yeah, bisexual too. Woo!
I've been in a relationship with my boyfriend for almost 4 years.
Amazing. And in the area you were growing up in, was it? I know it's San Francisco, and like where I live in Brighton, which is like the queer capital of the UK.
Mhm.
Um, was it acceptable to be queer where you were?
I think growing up, I would love to say like it was acceptable for being queer, but I felt like for me it was like something that you have to keep at bay,
Mm,
because a lot of people didn't understand that, especially in the 90s, early 2000s. A lot of people, it was a lot of harassment going on, or simply like like other people probably had their own internalized like homophobia around the topic. I can for surely tell you, like I grew up like there's a lot of people who have to learn how to accept backlash in their life, especially in the public. And
mm,
I grew up with backlash in the public. Like going to school, I never shared my sexuality with anyone because I felt like it was just this trending topic, especially when it came around me. People were
mm,
always asking like, "Are you gay? Why aren't you gay? Did you grow up with women?" Which actually, that's the truth. I did grow up with women, but that has nothing
mhm.
to do with,
Really
quite frankly,
doesn't.
with the subject. I'm my own individual. I didn't look at my mom and her relationship was like, I want to be just like that, or maybe I did, subconsciously. But but it was always that question that people always wanted to sit down and like get out of me, and I never had an issue with answering it. I think I had an issue with the reasons why you were asking because it wasn't always genuine. But
Absolutely.
yeah, like walking the streets of people, if they felt like that you were, a part of the LGBT community of some sort, they'll love to harass you. I was quite a bit bigger. I was 350 pounds at the time.
Mm,
So I was fairly large for my size. And um, I had people like grope my chest and stuff like that because of,
wow.
yeah, like and like random train stations and stuff because they're just like, look at that, we're gonna harass you. He wants the attention. And really, it's just like
Wow.
I'm just a young creative who's trying to figure out his creativity, at the time. But hey,
Mhm.
you know,
So you've always stood out,
mm,
even when you
oh
didn't want to.
yeah.
So when, because the personality you are, you seem very grounded and confident in who you are now. But was there a transition from seeing the fact that you stood out as negative to turning it into a positive? When did that kick in, if it kicked in?
I think when I started working when I was 12 years old. Um,
Really?
yeah, I started working when I was 12, and usually in America, you don't start working until you're like 14 at the very bare minimum. But I
Mm-hmm.
did little things that are more entrepreneurial. I was young and I saw the situations that my family has gone through, how the state of the world was. It was, after 2008, the recession. And like I just could not, as a child, even like bear the thought of not having resources, not having bare minimum anything. I had like one pair of pants in my closet and like a
Mm-hmm.
jacket and a t-shirt, and that's all I had to my name, and I just wasn't going to settle for that. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
because I exposed myself to working and I did nonprofit work when I was young, I did social services. I
You did
actually,
what?
yeah, I was
Tell me
working.
about that.
I think my confidence comes from my work experience and my experience in the world. I've done a lot of different service facing jobs that a lot of people cannot say they have done, and especially at my age. Because right now I'm 26, but
Mm-hmm.
I started when I was 12, like I said. So I started working in youth advocacy work, kind of stopping violence and people of communities of color.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that really started my journey of realizing what really is going on out here. And then I started working for cultural centers and arts institutes and stuff. And then from there, I ended up in childcare by the age of 14.
You mean
uh,
like foster care? You were working for or with or in it yourself?
no, I have never been in foster care, and I have
Okay.
not worked for foster care. I have worked for government assistance. Um,
Uh-huh.
but
Wow.
yeah, I've worked with government assistance, giving out food stamps and like EBT. And that was when I was 16. I worked with in partnership with Irish Immigration. Like it's a nonprofit that works with them. It's called the Irish Immigration Pastoral Center. I worked with them when I was
Mm-hmm.
16 as well. And when I was working for a nonprofit industries, by the time I was like 17, by the time I was 18, I was doing digital media, IT, television, broadcasting, radio. I've done a range of things.
That's insane.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. So from a young age, I think I got my confidence because like my professional training has refined me to understand
Mm,
myself, understand the issues that are going on, and they are ever changing, but yet the base still stays the same. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, like I think that's where my confidence comes from, like is seeing like, a lot of going through a lot of the work stuff that I have and meeting the people that I have met, going through a lot of trauma when I was younger, understanding that,
Mm-hmm.
and not letting it change me, just understanding that people don't understand that because what I feel is very real. I
Mm-hmm.
knew I felt it was very real. I never felt like that. And this was just this sin that I have to wash off of me. I was just like, you are just not very informed. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Like, and so I carried that energy going through my life. I carried that when I was working in flagship retail, when I was working at the airport at SFO. I've done a range of things, and that added to my confidence for sure.
Wow. So let me just take a moment there because what I'm hearing beyond the powerful story you're sharing, number one, I see this a lot because I love to watch a lot of uh, activists or people who are change makers and watch their videos or listen to their podcasts. And even when I think of people like Oprah, they all had this moment at a very young age that most people don't have. When they made a choice, they made a decision that something, whatever was going on around them, whether their family life or at school or, through poverty or whatever it was, they had a decision making moment. And you had that decision making moment where you said, yeah, this isn't for me. I mean, I understand. I'm not blaming my family. I'm not blaming anyone, but I want more from life than this. And even though you're saying your confidence developed afterwards because you did so many things and interfaced with so many people, it sounds like that decision is something that you came in with the capacity to see what was around you and make an active decision, not based on anything else, but an internal desire to have a different, better life. So that's the first point I want to highlight, that there are certain people that do come into the world who are change makers and have a real impact, that they tend to have this very similar story. So that's what I want to highlight first. And then there's this Christian energy. And I call it Christian energy because there are so many Christians who espouse to be Christian, but they don't have tolerance, they don't have kindness, they don't have acceptance of people who are different from them. And your response to people who saw you as wrong because you were gay or bisexual or queer, you said, I'm just going to understand that they don't know what they're really talking about. That is true spirituality. That is true uh, overarching love and accepting people for who they are. That is what Jesus taught. And I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, but I love to see um, when things are taken out of theory and just lived. And that is what you do, you just live these qualities. So to me, you've already proven you're this extremely original, unique, special human being from the get-go. And I'm sure if I were to dive deeper into your earlier story, I'd find many more, just how you were in your family, the role you played, examples of uniqueness and your specialness. And then you did this, all these different jobs. So all these different roles, something about you at such a young age made people believe in you enough to give you these roles. There was something emitting off of you that says that he's a person who has a sense of self, he has a sense of authority, he has a sense of capability. Otherwise, you wouldn't get those roles. So I just want you to maybe comment on what I've shared, if any of that resonates, and any insights you want to share around that before we move on.
Well, thank you for seeing me. I feel so seen. I'm like taken aback. I
Mm.
really appreciate your kind words and your delivery. Thank you so much for saying or phrasing in that way. I did grow up in a Christian household, right? Although I don't identify with, white Christian ideals, I do identify as like, spiritual, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. I always believed in treating people with kindness. I felt like I've seen the world in such a dark place, and people kind of like carry that energy on and continue that. And at a young age, I think I made a decision that I just did not want to do that. I wanted to see people in a kinder light, and, to the point to where I wanted to be there for them, support, as much as I can. But also put myself first because sometimes you can get a little burnt out for taking on the world's issues. Sometimes you got to take on yours as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that those experiences definitely have made me understand, especially like being in the work positions I have, because every single position I had to uh kind of cater to a different dynamic, like whether that be like young children, whether that be like adults in passing going to their flights, whether that be I'm struggling and I need a little assistance food wise, or
Mm-hmm.
whether that be like I'm a young teen looking to get transformative job skills that can transfer into my adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which I'm actually happy about because I see the fruits of my labor from that all the time, from those youth that were now like 20 something adults
Wow.
who are still carrying those skills to this day. So yeah, I agree with your whole sentiment.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Just this, I just, because while you were talking, I could just feel like my body just, I call it zhuzhing, when it's just like when something is true and resonates, and it's like life itself is going, yes, yes, this is what we're talking about. This is what this is for, this podcast. It's to share inspiration from people from all walks of life who are extraordinary in the most ordinary and challenging circumstances. So that is how I would define you. So, what I want to ask now is, coming through all these different roles, you've touched on it already, but what would you consider the common theme that you were bringing to each of these very, very diverse roles? It sounds to me like there's a very common principle that you're bringing into these roles. What would you say it was?
Love and support.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these places, a lot of people, or of course, in job environments, a lot of things are transactional. I think in the environments that I was in, the theme was supposed to be not transactional, right? But in capitalism, everything's kind of you know
Mm-hmm.
transactional. But I think that in the role that I've had, I realized what I am capable of, what I could do, and how I can make it to my benefit and the benefit of other people. Like I believe in the collective, and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that the collective thrives. And so I've learned at a young age, like if we all like, I don't have to be like in competition or the front runner of anything to be the shining star. We can all shine together in
Mm-hmm.
our own like special ways. I really felt that going into my digital media work with youth as well. I was a supervisor over
Mm-hmm.
14 youth every year, and they will rotate and decide who will stay in the program or who will not based off of what's going on in their lives or
Mm-hmm.
whatever criterion. Halfway problematic, halfway not. but um
Mm-hmm.
but it was definitely an eye-opening experience to see like people at such a impressionable age like trying to pick up skills, being able to take them to a TV station for them to host a show on a topic with like professionals. I even like make went out of my way to go get specific guests with specific experiences, whether that be school nurses that you know, or whether that be professionals who are actually doing it. And it got to the point where
Mm-hmm.
like people actually started to notice. But regardless of all of that, like I was happy that I was able to influence and to teach like skills to youth that they actually take today. Because usually you don't think that they'll pick it up. They'll be like, oh, it was an era, we're going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I can count on like if one of my hands, if not both of my hands, how many of the youth I still see bring that quality to their lives and to how they post on social media, how they interact with other people, even reach out to me and ask me, hey, can I have my portfolio? You know,
Wow.
I think like that for them to thrive makes me thrive. It makes me feel like that I had like that I made an impact,
Mm.
and they still tell me that they was like, you were the best supervisor we ever had. Like, honestly. And I
Mm.
didn't, but regardless, it's not about that. It's about like everyone
Well, it
thriving.
is. Take your flowers.
Well, thank you. But like I just always knew that like in subtle ways you can have an impact. And I knew that the forces that will be above me would
Mm-hmm.
not like the impact because they want their agenda carried out. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten used to going into a situation knowing I have a time limit, going and knowing that it's temporary, going in and trying to make the best change for myself for what I came in the situation for, whether that be
Mm-hmm.
financially, skill set wise, or whatever. And in the process, if I feel the star children, I'll call them the people who want to be great, a lot of
Oh.
people, like I'll make sure that you get whatever when I'm leaving the situation. If you can take my position, I will make sure someone takes my position or we'll
Mm.
promote someone. And that's that.
Wow. Do you know, listeners or watchers, we hear the word influencer a lot, and for me, Trey is the definition, the highest expression of an influencer, because he's influenced people on so many levels. This isn't about some shallow, how many followers, how many likes, how many brands can you get to sponsor you. This is somebody making real change in people's lives, people that need it the most. And he has enough humility, too much maybe, uh, to say, this is what I'm here for. This is what I do. It just comes naturally to me. But it's extraordinary. So the word I'm going to keep using throughout this interview, or chat, should I say, is extraordinary. He's an extraordinary influencer, and he's just beginning. Can you imagine? He's 26. And can you imagine what's going to be happening? But anyway, let's not get ahead of life. So that brings me on to your creativity, your creative expression. And we're going to talk about the realist exposure in a little bit specifically. But I'd really like to hear, um, when did you start being creative with your clothing? Because if you go on the website realistexposure.com/Tray, Tray, you'll see some of his outfits, his looks. Amazing. When did you start really embracing your creativity like that?
Well, I think that when I was younger, like I don't think I know that. When I was younger, I my family were always into like, fashion of some sort, even if they couldn't afford it, they'll go to the thrift store and figure something out. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful for the women that I had in my life, women meaning that my mother, my grandmother, and my great grandmother. I had all three
Mm, wow.
growing up, and all three of them were stylish. It's like a
Wow.
generational like thing. So I felt like I was up next in a way, like a dynasty. They would
Hmm.
wear like really nice things. Eve, like after this chat, I'll send you some photos, of
Oh,
course,
yes, please.
so you
Yeah.
can for sure,
That'd be amazing.
yes, so you can for sure see.
Insert them there. Mm.
You can if you like, but yeah, like I think my mom like dress a lot of different, dress up in a lot of different ways. My mom, I feel like I'm like my mom in a lot of different ways because my mom used to like work retail and she had me at the age of 19. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but she used to work like, different retails out here at a mall called Stonestown. It still exists. It's just completely different from her dynamic. But like she used to like run into celebrities and all type of different things on their modeling campaigns. And like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm a further expression of her in a way. And my grandmother used to like always make sure that we wouldn't leave the house a certain way. Like I felt like they were teaching me when I was young, and my great grandmother, she was not having it. If you look like you had any article of clothing or shoes that are worn out, she'd be like, "That is
Mm-hmm.
no longer acceptable for you to wear. Take it off." You know? But I feel like
Standards.
yeah, like even to this day, my mom, like whenever I'll go and visit her and like I'll leave the house, she'll just be like, make sure you don't leave the house, like make sure that you look your best and feel your best is what she's saying to me,
Yes, yeah.
And I think that also growing up watching like, 90s, early 2000s, like movies, supermodel sitcoms, Naomi Campbell,
Of
um,
course.
RuPaul's Drag Race is a huge one, like I love like certain drag queens fashion, even though like I don't consider myself to go to that realm. I felt, but
Mm-hmm.
I have such a respect for it, and I pull
Mm-hmm.
influence from it. Certain drag queens like Shea Coulee, Raja,
Mm-hmm.
Simone. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
add Liz, Violet Chachki.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, queens like that really influence like a lot of different details and specs of what I would like. So a lot of my fashion taste is influenced from women essentially,
Mm,
but
beautiful.
also I like there's like a futuristic sci-fi component sometimes to it. Like I love stuff like The Matrix, like a Men in Black, like Secret Agent on a Mission type. And also I'm influenced by the punk grunge movement. Like I grew up looking into a lot of rock music, and so I have a multifaceted taste and approach to fashion. And I don't think
Yes.
like my family would take it to that point. That's my special element that I love to have. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, like I grew up watching like fashion shows, so I love a good like avant-garde, like conceptual look. Overall, I like to consider myself a mannequin that looks like an art piece.
Oh, what a way to describe it. And really, I advise you again to go to realistexposure.com/Trey. And you can not only see his work and his looks and his cyberpunk particular is amazing. All of the looks are so beautiful. And you can see he crafts the colors, he crafts the whole thing. And you can just see how they all flow into each other. He's a natural. And there are obviously other he founded the Realist Exposure, so there are other artists on there as well that you can learn more about. And you also do photography, is that right?
That's correct.
Tell us about that.
My love for photography started when I was in high school. Like, back then, like Androids were on the rise. And I
Mm,
mean, I there too, but Android really was like, what we could afford at the time.
that's right.
And
I'm
yeah,
still an Android. You Apple snobs get on my nerves.
uh, I totally agree with that sentiment. But so back then I say that because technology was developing fast,
Yes.
and so when I was in high school, like, and that was another thing that encouraged my fashion. Like my high school, like a lot of people, it was a status quo to be dressed. So
Mm,
like times were different when I was growing up, like for sure.
mm,
Like that, fashion, it was all I've done, is all I've seen, is all I breathe,
mm,
And I used to, so when people used to have their birthdays and when they used to feel like at their best at school, I would take their pictures, and people will always tell me that I did a great job, and that was
mm,
something that I wanted to explore. So when I ended up landing a job in digital media and IT, it was a perfect opportunity to do so. So
mm,
I trained and like doing like photography with like the rules of thirds first, and like the ISOs, and like,
mm. Oh,
how.
explain those a little bit for us non-aware people around photography.
So the rule of thirds is a grid, right? When you're taking
Mm-hmm.
photography. So it's like, line, one third, line, two third, that type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we say the rule of thirds, like usually in the center of the camera, you would think that you want to be in the center, but really you kind of want to be like right here,
Ah,
kind of like a little bit off. So like you're like two thirds into,
Mm.
And so that's one of the rule of thirds. Your ISO is like how bright and how clear you can see things, you know. And those are the things that I started learning, and a lot of other things that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't come directly to mind that I don't use in my current too much in my current practice, but I'll get
Mm-hmm.
more of my current practice, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at that time it was 20, I would say it was 2013, 2014 when I started that. And I got uh a job in digital media and IT in 2014. I was in that job until 2018. And so
Wow.
that gave me 4 years to explore. I also took a job at Macy's, right, in the
Mm.
flagship store in San Francisco. Wasn't doing the traditional sales associate, retail merchandiser. I actually was doing a blitz.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, oh, oh.
and I was leading that with also a team of like, you know, people with special needs. I was doing
Wow.
Yeah, I never thought that that was possible, but it was. They asked me directly, and I said yes. Um, and so we were in charge of clearing out 8 floors of inventory because they were selling the building, and it was like, you know, such a
Mm.
like a seasonal job at the time, but it was very like, you know, eye-opening for me. But yeah, I said that because I used to work like 16-hour days in a
Oh
basement
my
there.
goodness.
Yeah, and so I needed like I literally would go in at 7 in the morning and it'd be dark outside, and I'll leave and it would be dark outside, so I never really saw
Oh my
the
God.
sunlight, and so I would literally take pictures of the sun every chance I could.
Oh
Like,
wow.
and my commutes is where I got a lot of pictures. If you're curious about the work that I've done freelance, it is on
Mm-hmm.
realistexposure.com/archive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are my freelance works like pre a business. But yeah, I took a lot of those on Android or on iPhone, depends on what it is. I didn't have a DSLR until I started a business. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so I just did freelance shots of my commutes and stuff. A lot of things landed, and eventually at my digital media job, I borrowed um their DSLR. Mind you, a little risky because we took that thing on flights and a lot of things, but you know, everything made it safely. It's
What is
great.
a DLSR?
DSLR
Oh,
is a
DSLR. Sorry.
it's okay. It's a what there it's what you see a photographer taking a camera with. So it's a digital camera.
Ah,
It's not like a film camera
okay,
or a
okay.
Kodak. It's like, you know, you booked a photo shoot with a photographer, digital camera, that's the camera. So you can switch out the
Right.
lens. I'm a Canon user,
Oh,
but
nice.
um yeah, and so I would do freelance shots in that way, and while also teaching youth how to do so and taking them to do different things to learn photography as well. So that kind of built my like taste level and palette.
Mm.
And then I would say that I kind of diverged from photography because you go through this crisis at 18 or like, you know, going into college of like, now you have to get a quote unquote real job. And so
Mm.
that led me into my psychology path, which I love and still embrace to this day, obviously. Like I feel like I'm so like multifaceted, it's hard to choose one. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
sometimes kind of settle down on what I feel the most passionate at the time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so eventually after so I it was from 2018 to 20, I would say from 2018 to 2020, like I was going through college, getting my degree, and then the pandemic happened, right? And
Right.
um and I was starting my relationship around that time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it started, my relationship started January of 2020 with no pandemic in sight, and then by March we were indoors together.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
yeah, but
Let me just interrupt you there because I just wanted to answer you a quick question about the photography. Do
yeah.
you have a particular eye? I mean, is there something your eye is drawn to that's common to all the different images you take or took?
I think that when it comes to people, I love uh like an editorial. I love depth, color, texture, right? One of
Mm-hmm.
my secrets that I add to my photography is that I add details to it and vibrancy, and
Mm-hmm.
I increase the colors on a lot of my things. Not out of the natural realm, but a lot more
Mm-hmm.
visible. And I like to like add a texture to it to where you feel like you're actually in the element. And I think that a lot of people don't do that. They like a flat image, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I like my image to be a little more 2D.
Yeah, dynamic. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, so you went on and studied psychology. What drew you to that?
I was in high school, and you go through that point of they're just like, well, college is coming. You got to figure out
Mm.
what you want to do. I was not the best high school student. I worked all the high school. I chose working instead of going to high school, even though
A
I
true
worked.
entrepreneur.
Yeah, but I still turned in my work and I still graduated. I graduated with
Wow.
all of my programs.
Excellent.
Um, but I chose psychology because I felt like at the time, like I really was like I wanted to be in a position to help people, and I thought that it would be in the therapist chair helping people with their problems.
Mhm.
But as I went through college, and I had such a great time, and going through my major by the end and by the pandemic, I realized, I want to help people, but I don't think it's in a way of like handling your emotions
Mm.
directly, because I'm the type of person who wants to tell you the truth,
Mm.
a direct truth, and there you have to be very objective,
Mm.
a very ethical process,
And patient,
mhm,
endless patience.
endless, and I am endless patience, but also to like, like I just couldn't see myself just doing that one thing, and it's so refined, and you have to like have a certain presence online, and
Mm.
I was just such a creative artist. I just could not have that.
So to be boxed in like that. Yeah.
I could not have it. Yeah. Like, and so I think as I was finishing up my degree, I just looked because my boyfriend told me like if you ever decided to change your career path, I will 100% support you. So I literally went to him and I was like, I'm changing my career path.
Mm.
I said, I think I want to start a business. And it happened after, okay, so and that decision happened after I was not only fired from the airport, but they called the police on me. They
Oh
tried to get
my God,
me.
tea. Do you want to share the tea or not?
I do want to share the tea because the case has been dismissed because there's no evidence. But so when I was during college getting my psychology degree, I just wanted a job to keep my income going. So I worked at San Francisco International Airport. This is not for the airport. They treated me very nicely
Mm.
themselves. Like they would come and bring me meals. They saw me for who I was. Like it's
Mhm.
not the facility, it is the company, which I will not be named.
Mhm.
And so I worked for them for a year and 7 months, and I at first I enjoyed it because it was a very convenient job, but then after a while during the pandemic, you can only imagine how stressful it could be working at an airport.
Yes.
And it was funny because one of my college counselors was like, "You don't want to work at an airport. What if a pandemic happens?" And I was like, "A pandemic is not going to happen in my lifetime."
Mm.
And after that happened, I was like, "Wow, did he like know something?"
Mm.
But
Did he
anyway, so
start it?
right, like what happened? Like what is going on? And because he was completely correct. And so that, COVID scare after COVID scare, which is hard, and laying off people, cutting hours, unemployment for a while, coming back. It was a journey. But at the end, they did not have the courage to fire me because I was such a good worker. So what they did was
Mm.
accuse me of stealing, for petty
No
theft.
way.
Yeah. And so that's what corporate asked them to do.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they called the police on me. They did a citizen's arrest. They had no evidence, and so literally, like, when they had me sign a form that said I would be willing to pay them back. Of course, I put VC on the corner because I'm a smart bitch,
Mm.
and case dismissed. So because I was signed the first to sign that against my will.
Absolute outrage.
Yeah,
How very dare they?
but but
Mhm.
it was funny because that this was December 29th, 2020 that this
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm.
I was released at 2:30 p.m.
Mhm.
Released from a citizen's arrest or whatever. I was still out there.
Mhm.
I was not incarcerated.
Mhm.
But by 5 o'clock, I had a job interview in cannabis, and I got the job. So
No way. That
I
is
worked there for I
brilliant.
directly after.
That is
Yeah.
brilliant.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing the tea. That was very exciting tea with a brilliant outcome. So you met your partner, the pandemic started, and you decided with his support and encouragement that you needed to start your own business and have a change of career. Is this the realist exposure that we're talking about?
Yes, it is. For me,
Uh-huh.
I think I just got tired of like it just well after being fired from the airport, experiencing that racism of him, like I spiraled a little bit in the interim
Mm-hmm.
of my next job, and they
Mm-hmm.
were like, "Why couldn't you start so soon?" I'm like, because I'm spiraling. You were like, and you know, so I decided, I said I would never, I would not want nobody to treat me like that ever again. And so like, I'm
Yes.
starting a business. Like that's not happening. And so,
Yes.
and a lot of people had that experience around the same time. And like, so a lot of people did the same thing. And so I decided to start realist exposure. I didn't know exactly, um, I didn't know exactly what direction it was going to go in. I just knew I had past work that I had an
Mm-hmm.
arsenal. Well, not arsenal. Let me not say that. It's weaponizing words. I can
Mm-hmm.
check on that. In in the vault in the sack. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I was like, okay, like I just want to figure things out with it. So I was like, let's just start a website. Let's figure out a host. It was just very bare bones.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to reach out to like, my old arts organizations to see if they have any direction for that.
Mm-hmm.
Newsflash, didn't have anything to offer but a workshop
Wow.
and barely that. And so I was like, okay, that's very interesting,
Yes.
And so I literally, when I was at my cannabis job and out here,
You're not
I have,
saying cannabis, are you? Because it sounds like it.
I am,
Oh,
yes.
right. What's a cannabis job?
Uh, so, so in California, like, well, cannabis is legal,
Yes.
right? It's decriminalized all over the country, but in
Yes.
California, it was one of the first places that was legal. And
Yes.
so I was working before decriminalization. I
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah, I
You're
was
an
working.
outlier.
I was working in cannabis. So think of it like this: you go to a bar, you order a drink at the bar, you have a
Mm-hmm.
bartender, you have a bar back,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You go to the cannabis club, you order your cannabis at the bar, you have a bud tender, you know?
Really? I need to move to
Yeah.
California.
Yeah. And so like it was a very educational environment. They had people come and train you from the brands who are selling themselves. They will give
Mm-hmm.
you samples, they'll give you non-medicated samples. They
Mm-hmm.
would teach you just in and outs. And I was so blessed to be there. I made my way into management there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
well, in between management, like they gave me my own specialty role. I was a retail mentor
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point at a cannabis club. Like I always had a specialty role at a certain point. Like they was like,
It
we just want to
sounds like it.
that.
And they all
Yeah,
involve mentoring and support.
yes. And so that's where I was during building my business. That's where I was like offering test shoots to a lot of my friends, and I wanted to make sure that my business
Mm-hmm.
is primarily black, and
Mm-hmm.
in brown led as well, LGBT, that type of thing. Always black first for sure. I just have to say that.
Absolutely.
Um, and like during my work there, learning and everything, as much as I was growing as a professional and learning how to manage a whole business, because it got to the point where people don't want to show up and they put me in charge of everything, of course,
Mm.
right? I don't want to say it like that, but can I be frank on here? Can I be
Oh, well,
frank?
no, please. That's what we're here for.
I am not in the business of being a house Negro. Okay. Yeah. I am not in the business of that, and you know what I mean? Like it seems like that's what a lot of, white owned businesses will like to do. Let's put a light
Wow.
skinned black dude, or just black. They don't even think of light skin. Just a black
Mm-hmm,
dude, and let him be the in between person, and let manage
mm-hmm.
whatever they want to do, or whatever, and hold him accountable to the point to where the COO is calling me, trying to hold me to a white man that just started. And mind you, I'm covering someone else's shift, but
Wow.
the racism there was high.
Wow.
Higher, I thought
Yeah.
that moment I was fired was bad. That was the beginning. Like
Wow.
it was like so the first day I was 10 minutes late, and I got sent home, and after that they reached out to the person who has been in contact, giving me the job, said I forgot to show up. Like I didn't know I was started work that day. Not like I tried to call a ride and the ride kept malfunctioning. No errors here, but I forgot to show up. So I had to call the manager. Mind you, the manager was Afro Latino.
Mm-hmm.
And I called him, and he worked in the airport business like I did, so he knows how I've been through. And I called, and that's who did my interview, who was the manager. I called,
Mm.
and like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who thinks that I forgot my day, but I did not. It sounds a little racist to me, but we're going to start over tomorrow, like nothing happened, and we're going to see how this goes. Okay? He
Very
said,
nice.
he told me to this day that's like the top five gag worthy thing that took him back. Like, I was like, the fact that it was happening, and then when he saw it was happening, he was like, "Wow!" I was like, "Yeah, very racist here." Um,
Yes.
and yeah, and the clientele, we had to. This is America clientele, you know what I mean?
Yeah, oh my God, no.
Or
But it
like
does sound a little bit like the universe was kind of trying to get you out of all of these roles and into what you're meant to be doing. Like, yeah, let's make it more uncomfortable. Let's just make it just unbearable.
it was very unbearable to the point to where
Mm.
you want to hear how I quit that job?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
so in the true resourceful fashion that I am, so I felt it for what it is. Some of the bud tenders felt it for what it is.
Hmm.
And so I knew that I was on my way out. I know that another person was on their way out, and another person wanted to stay, but they wanted to be uplifted. And so what I did
Hmm.
first was accept, okay, this is not for me, right?
Hmm.
Then I started being, and I had a really close rapport with staff. So I would talk to one of them that I felt like was, needed to be in my position that I had. And I said, how would you
Hmm.
feel if I asked him to have my position? I let him read my job description and everything to
Hmm.
make sure everything was good. I did my weaseling around. I was like, hey, I think he needs a promotion. He needs a promotion. And I think he needs something like I have. And they was like, yeah, you're right. Because you know me, they're thinking they're getting rid of me. You're not getting rid
Hmm. Hmm.
and yeah, and so that started that process. And then the other bartender was like, I'm sick and tired of this. I applied to another cannabis club. Can you call and get me the job? I called, they gave her the job.
Hmm.
I'm not even gonna lie, like I was just a little like overwhelmed and I felt a little like defensive in
Hmm.
Tobacco. And I held out for as long as I could, but it was Black History Month, February 19th. It was February 19th when this happened. You know how I was
Hmm.
so infuriated when the staff asked me what was the music policy. And so I sent an email to the staff that could answer, like the team who could answer that question, because I didn't have an answer to that question.
Hmm.
Not hip hop and R&B. And but I didn't ask that. I asked, hey, the staff wanted to know what the music policy was in the building. I just wanted clarification on that. I'm not accusing, I'm not saying no one's being racist. I didn't say any of that. I didn't imply it either. Like I was just asking simply for the music policy.
Hmm.
Two white gay men want to storm out, talking the door went bam, like want to storm out the back and try to check me on my email. It's like, oh well, you see this, that, and the third.
Oh my Lord.
And I was so over it. And I just started letting them have it. Like I was just like,
Yes.
you're not gonna approach me like this on Black History Month at my job on the floor for email. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're not.
Wow.
And so like literally like I just you know, let it out. Like I just started letting them have it verbally, and they're
Mm.
like backing up, and I was just going forward. Like I was just not having it. And they went to the back. They were just terrified,
Oh,
and I was
brilliant.
over it. I was over it, and then they had me training that man how to close the store. I was mad. Like I was just like. And so the next week afterwards, I kept calling out of my shift. The other staff, she got the nerd job, so she kept calling out her shift. We're just like, you're gonna suffer today. And then eventually,
Yes.
effective immediately on a Friday, I quit. Please let me know when I can give you your keys, and you can give me my check, and it'll be a fair exchange. And at that point, um, like I felt like I gained a lot of respect for the company.
Well, no shit, as they say.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how that happened. I think that it was a gradual, and at that time I was just getting a marketing mentor. I was just getting my creative feel. I was just starting to
Mm.
rekindle like business relationships. Things were growing for me, and I also accepted like a job to take care of my sister during the day. Very small
Mm.
income, but something to keep you sustained. Never
Mm.
look back. I've never been employed ever since. I've been employed for myself.
Bravo. That's absolute bravo. So tell us what the focus of realist exposure is, like who you support, and remind people of your services as well.
Well, Realistic Exposure today is a photography social enterprise, and basically we prioritize telling storytelling, basically your authentic story for what it is, how it is. And I feel like Black people have been marginalized for way too long. No matter where you're at, we don't have access to resources as much as other people do. So I
Mhm,
think it's about time to have a place where you can kind of look for those resources, or at least partner with people who have resources as well to offer to those communities. And
mhm,
so primarily we offer photography services, which is event photography and also portrait photography,
mhm,
as well as creative consulting. How could we be able to help you with your creative goals? How can we be able to help you move to the next level? And brand
mhm,
development, how are we going to communicate your message through visuals, through social media copy, through newsletters? How are we going to market? How are we going to communicate the messages
mhm,
for what it is and what you're trying to, your brand is trying to see? What color is that? What icon is that? Do you need
mhm,
help with social media? Do you need help with strategy? Uh,
mhm,
those type of things. And on top of all three of those things, we are rolling out photo series slowly but surely. We started off with a newer photo series called Black Light, a photo series documenting Black artists. And it doesn't matter where you are, as long as I'm there with the camera, you could be featured in Black Light. And it's a
mhm,
process. You will reach out, we'll have an intro call, you just share your story off the grid, no recording, no any of that. It's just genuinely you just
mhm,
expressing yourself what you are to build that rapport. Then we'll move into you filling out a form that has all the questions that I probably touched on, but you can sit down and ask, schedule for a free photo session. And with that, you get a free photo digital package. You get
mhm,
a free 11 by 14 print with frame as a completion gift, as well as
mhm.
us being able to highlight you, shout you out online. And it's just a place for people to see, like, this is where Black people are thriving. This is how they're thriving. This is how they should want to share their story.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
And so that's what real
amazing.
exposure is right now. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. And there's also a lot of on the website, lots of the latest events and activities you're involved in. And I think one of your events that won an award, is that right?
Uh, no, none of my events have one.
Let me talk about in a sensible way rather than just guessing, because I was reading one of the things that, let me just check here.
No worries.
So yeah, maybe award wasn't the right word, but I will
I
find it.
I am like I have been in installations and curations
I
before.
think that's what it was, an installation that had
I
some
guess you
very
could say
good reception. Yeah.
that. So ever since starting Realist Exposure, I was able to do collaborations with well-known brands out here in San Francisco, like Phil's Coffee. I
Yes.
was able to
Yes.
do a residency at Artists as a First Responder.
Oh, I
Uh,
think that might be it. That what you're
yeah,
saying? Yeah.
and so with Artists as a First Responder, with that residency, they gave me $500, free a year free of Adobe Creative Cloud,
Mhm.
museum visits, right? I get free museum visits for a year. For the Berkeley Museum, San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, Museum of the African Diaspora, uh,
Yeah.
those places. And I also had access to a studio for a whole month that I had 24-hour access to. I'm talking keys and like a file,
Mhm.
and to be able to create what I wanted. It was a pilot. They didn't expect anything of me. And so I decided to create like a more private showing installation. It was called
Mhm.
Grace, Love, and Desire. And I need to put that on the website as well, but that you can find on Instagram.com/Trey1. Yeah,
Yeah. That is incredible. And can you spell out your Instagram again for us?
it's okay. So my handle on Instagram is at Trey1. So that's TrayAReal and then the number one.
Excellent. So
Mm.
you can see, if you've been enjoying this chat as much as I have, why I wanted to invite Trey on the show. Trey is a real one. He's very clear about who he is. His journey is extremely inspirational to me, and I'm sure to you as well. I can see all the common threads and the common themes that he came in here prepared, even if he didn't know he was prepared. He came in here to mentor, to teach, to encourage, and to support his community. He came in with a community spirit. He came in to be authentic. He came in to honor his creativity. He came in to create space for other people of color to honor their creative expression, follow their dreams. He also, he hasn't mentioned, but he has a skill of fashion stylist as well. So
Yeah.
if you would like to work with Trey or with Realist Exposure and benefit from it, but work with Trey with brand management, he hasn't mentioned that either today, but these are all things that he does offer, then you're in the right place because he's lived it. You know, he's a living example of what it takes to honor yourself, honor your feelings, honor your dreams, honor your drive, your passion, and to speak up for what's right when the time comes. And life will be on your side. So be like Trey because he's a very, very inspirational human being. Thank you, Trey, for coming on the show. Did you have any final words, anything you wanted to share?
Um, yeah, always have grace for yourself. You know, situations get hard and sometimes they feel so individual, but you'll be surprised of how collective your experiences are a lot of the time. Yeah, go to realistexposure.com and check out our work, you know. I really would love for the work to be spread all over the world. So
Yes, and remember to tune in to Conversations with Yve Anmore next time. We have another episode that's already been recorded with Odia Quoza, African shaman. He's also a designer, an artist, a healer. I love multifaceted people who follow their passions, as you can tell. And every conversation is very, very different because I love to have a broad spectrum of people on the show. So I don't know who's going to be on next time, but it will be fabulous. Trust me. You can tune in on to watch it on YouTube or Spotify, or you can listen in wherever you get your podcast. Just search for Conversations with Yve Anmore. So until next time, have a fabulous time. Follow your heart, follow your passion. Most importantly, love yourself. Bye for now. Say bye, Trey.
bye. Thank you for having me. I felt so much love. Have a great day.